fighting out of St. Louis, Missouri, Matt the Madman.
I didn't want to be one of those fathers that just conceded to life because I had kids and, stuff like that. I wanted to teach my children how to live, and that was, or to follow their dreams, no matter what. By the time I had left high school, I was a full-blown alcoholic, and that's when the alcohol actually started causing problems in my life. So I figured, well, if alcohol doesn't work, maybe meth will do better. And I think somewhere along the lines, I felt like in the back of my mind that I would always get sober at some point if I didn't die first, and
what was driving you towards that?
I believe that a lot of it was I just didn't ever feel like I belonged. Was one of the things. When I drank, I could be someone else. When I drank, I could, I guess the world was telling me to be one way, and I knew I was someone. I wasn't that way. Things are the way they are, and they're that way for a reason. So I've learned a lot of lessons, and I have a lot of stories to tell, and I have a lot of, just my life can help people, and people that don't think that they are worth anything, they are, and I could be an example of that. But I guess the craziest thing that happened to me was the second time I went there. They came and got me one day, and they said, Matt Tinker, go up to R&O. So I went up to R&O, and they're like, all right, Mr. Tinker, you're going next door. Now, next door to diagnostics is a level 5 camp. That's where all the rapists and murderers and shit are, And I said, I'm doing what? I'm going where? They're like, you're going next door to the other side. And I'm like, whoa, what up?
What stories do they need to know from you, or events from your life to make them understand who Matt Tinker is?
Oh, shit. I can cuss, right?
Oh, yeah. Fuck yeah.
I got lots of them. I got lots of stories, man. I don't even really know where to begin, to be honest with you. I guess who I am today, man, would give me an idea, So today I'm a personal trainer. I'm a career personal trainer, and I like to say that because I'm invested in what I do. And not that other people that aren't invested in what they do, but over the years, I've been a trainer for about 12 years and 13 years, and I've just seen a lot of people come and go, trainers and stuff like that, and I don't know where they're at now. It's not the point, but I'm not going anywhere, and I like to put that out there to my clientele, the people that I train, the people in the gym. It's just like, this isn't something that I'm doing to pass the time. This isn't something that I'm doing while I get my degree. Like, this is my degree. This is what I do, Aside from that, I am occupational-wise, I'm a personal trainer and a professional fighter. I'm a father and a husband, and I have 3 beautiful children from 3 different women. I have a 21-year-old son who's a starting heavyweight wrestler for Cal Poly. I have a beautiful 10-year-old daughter, and I have a 19-month-old son, so those things take up a lot of my heart, and it's been I took a really crooked path to get to where I'm at. You know what I'm saying? I didn't I never really had anything figured out, and I still don't have anything figured out, and martial arts has always been mentally an obsession that I've had. As I was younger, as a kid, my parents were baseball fanatics, and so like they had me in baseball just hoping I would be like the next left-handed pitching cardinal, and I just could not fucking feel the ball. You know what I'm saying? Like catching a ball was beyond me, and so I could hit it, but catching it was not something I could do, and then I got into hockey, and I played hockey. Hockey took up a lot of my time. And in my early teens, I got into martial arts a little bit, but again, hockey just was something our family was invested in by that time. I played on higher level teams, and we had lots of friends and family involved and stuff like that. So we took trips, and so it kind of always won out until after I graduated high school. And then I did a little bit more martial arts after high school, but then drugs and alcohol won out. They took over my life, and it went down a pretty sordid path of just one drug right after the other. By the time I had left high school, I was a full-blown alcoholic, and that's when the alcohol actually started causing problems in my life. So I figured, well, if alcohol doesn't work, maybe meth will do better, and so I took that path, and then when meth had run its course, went back to alcohol, and then it was, meth and heroin and alcohol, and then alcohol and heroin and crack, and then heroin and alcohol, on and on, and I just kind of accepted that way of life, like this is how I'm gonna be, and I think somewhere along the lines I felt like in the back of my mind that I would always get sober at some point if I didn't die first, and I ended up I got stories for days, you know what I'm saying? A lot of them start with, so this one time I was smoking crack, or this one time I was shooting, something like that, and I could talk about that all day long, but, somewhere along the lines, I got put on probation. My house got kicked in. I got put on probation, and I'm from probation. I got put on house arrest. And I cut off the anklet, and I did a bunch of stupid stuff, and ended up in prison, on a short prison sentence, and I got out of prison. Nothing changed, and I didn't really give a shit, and got out of prison, and somewhere within the next couple of months, I had hit bottom, was what a lot of people say. I hit bottom. I woke up one day, and I was out of ideas. I was out of just out of paths to take, and I just was looking at my life one morning, and I was like, can't pinpoint, I don't know the exact date, but I remember the exact feeling. I remember the exact thought process, and it was like, I just can't do this anymore. I can't, I'm an embarrassment to my family. I'm an embarrassment to my son, and so I knew damn good and well that there was no chance of me recovering on the street. There was no chance of me. And I had already been to all the treatment centers. I had already been on the methadone clinics and Suboxone and all that stuff like that, so I just figured, well, next time I go to jail, I'll just stop, and I proceeded to do what I continued to do. And then the next time I got arrested, I made a plan to stop. I stopped using. And it didn't just stop. It wasn't like I just stopped and everything was okay. I went through the DOC again, and spent my last 70 days of that 13 months in prison treatment. And, I got out of prison and went into a program, a 12-step program, and I just never looked back, and started to rebuild my life little by little, and took a while. Started to regain the trust of my family and friends, and got married again, and my second marriage, and then got divorced, and then got remarried, and then I had kids and stuff in between. And I think that's a pretty significant part of who I am. It's just what I do. And in the meantime, after I got sober and got healthy and started to put some weight back on, I got involved in fitness and got involved in martial arts, and I never really I never really assumed I would be the person that I am today. I just thought I was going to be a shadow of who I am. But when I look back, I really set out to be that person, and here I am, and I feel like just more comfortable in my own skin these days, and just happy with what I do. So I think that's pretty significant, for me. Yeah.
Absolutely. So that, from that start, there's a lot in there, but to go from, at the end of high school, you're a full-fledged alcoholic. What, in hindsight, maybe in the 12-step program, did you figure out like what was driving you towards that?
I believe that a lot of it was I just didn't ever feel like I belonged. Was one of the things. When I drank, I could be someone else. When I drank, I could, I guess the world was telling me to be one way, and I knew I wasn't that way. And so when I drank, I felt like I didn't have any worries or any concerns what people thought, I think the other part of it, I think a large part of it's hereditary. I found out later on in life that my family is largely full of alcoholics and addicts, man. Like, it's huge. It runs rampant throughout my family on both sides, my mom and my dad's side, and God love them, not everybody, but it's just, there's a lot, and I learned that much later on. I knew there was some, I'd party with some of my cousins, and I had, things like that, but not to the extent that what I found out later on that it was, and so I feel like, looking back on it, that and the way that I feel now I don't give a shit, like now I'm like, I am who I am what I am, and I wish I had learned that lesson a little early on in life, and maybe things would have been different. But honestly, when I think about it that way too, though, it's the same thing. It's like, I don't really want to change things. Things are the way they are, and they're that way for a reason, so I've learned a lot of lessons, and and I have a lot of stories to tell, and I have a lot of, this, my life can help people, and people that don't think that they are worth anything, they are, and I could be an example of that, so I'd rather be that than just some, blue collar, worker bee, you know what I'm saying, and stuff like that. So I think that's, part of the reason why who I am. But yeah, like I said, I mean, I just like when I tell my story to people, and, we in certain atmospheres and stuff like that, it really just, the main feeling is I come back to going like, I just never really felt like I fit in anywhere. I was always searching to fit in somewhere, and didn't really realize that it was more about me than what it was about what everybody else thought or thinks, and so I think that was my biggest driving force, and then on the other side of that is like, I know that when I drank, when I drank, I just loved the feeling of it, and once I put it in my body, like I just couldn't get enough. Like I need more now, so that was the feeling I always had. So I was always chasing that,
Is who you are now, had you been yourself in high school and had you not cared about what other people thought of you and been sober, is it fair to say that who you are now is who you would have been then as personality type?
Yeah, and I think there are yeah, definitely, and I think there are certain glimpses of me that were in that personality back then. I didn't hang with the popular kids. I didn't hang with the, with the jocks. I always had my own sect of friends. And things like that. And I thought that was cool. I thought it was cool, but I also thought I was super cool because I drank. I could outdrink you, so I'm cooler than you, that kind of thing. So, at first it was a big party, and, but by the end of it, I realized, looking back on it, once I got sober and learning a lot about alcoholism, I realized like, man, I was addicted, I was hooked, and I was nothing I could do about it, then, I had to go through what I had to go through before I could learn the lessons I needed to learn to get to where I am today. My whole family drank, it was part of what they did. I just drank more than they did, so yeah.
Were there, looking back, was there a time when you, maybe even in high school or when you were, before you had gone onto the drugs, you're on the alcohol, or where you go, holy shit, like that was crazy of me to have done, or that was like too much. I learned, looking back, there's a lesson there that I can look at now.
Yeah. I mean, on one hand, yes. At the time, it seemed normal. I went to I started out at a Lutheran high school, and so I played hockey, and my club hockey coach started coaching for a Catholic high school, and he begged me for my freshman and sophomore years to come play hockey for him, and I didn't want to go to an all boys school, and so the first 2 years of high school were I drank very little, but once I transferred into the Catholic high school, because I did eventually accept it, it was normal. Everybody was drinking. Catholics drink, and so but I would come to school with hangovers like every day, and it wasn't just that. When I look back on it, I was like, this is probably what everybody else was doing. But I don't think that everybody else was going through what I went through. I mean, as soon as school was over, it was like, I can't think about anything else until I get some alcohol. I just had to have it, I had to have it. And that was my whole goal moving forward from like, as soon as the bell rang, I was like, I gotta go get it. I gotta find out who's going to get it for me, where can I buy it, or they got to card me, this and that. And, so I think that was the process that probably, signified the fact that I was, full-blown alcoholic, was the fact that I couldn't think of anything else. Most people that were drinking that night were probably like, oh, we can't get any alcohol, cool, we're just going to go play Yahtzee and go to bed, but I was like adamant, like I'm not doing shit else, like this is what I'm going to do. And it was every fucking day. So yeah, I think that was played a huge part in it.
And then alcohol at a certain point wasn't doing it for you. So, I mean, did you go straight to meth from that?
Yeah, pretty much, it was weird because there was like, some of my friends were doing meth and I was still kind of staying away from it a little bit, and I had a pretty big breakup with my high school girlfriend right after I graduated high school. And so she was gone. So I guess I was looking to fill a hole, and I was still drinking at the time. But and then I went out with my friends one night and I'm like, fuck it, let's do some meth. I'll do it with you. You know what I'm saying? And that just kind of snowballed it. Once I was on meth, it was like, well, shit, now I don't have to, I could do meth at 7 a.m. in the morning because I don't have to worry about finding someone that's 21 to buy it for me. You know what I'm saying? Like I can carry it in my pocket and do it at noon. I was kind of brought up on this, like you don't drink until after 4:30 type, atmosphere. So I just kind of was like, oh, I'm not really an alcoholic unless I drink before 4:30, but I can do meth at any time of the day and I'm okay, you know, and I took that to the max, you know. I ran into the ground. Next thing you know, I'm selling it. Next thing you know, I'm cutting it with stuff and I'm hurting people and I'm staying up for weeks, man. You know, like it seemed like just on and on and on, you know. And then some other significant shit happened, and you know, I had to kind of put that aside a little bit, you know. But there's alcohol was always right there, you know. I found I drank a lot less when I was doing meth, you know. So though, but then I just ended up on both, you know what I'm saying, doing both, you know. And then yeah, and then this, you know, later on, the same thing happened with heroin, same thing happened with crack, you know. My friends were doing it, and I just was like, okay, I guess it's time for me to try this one now, you know. And that's how I ended up on them. Yeah.
What was the feeling you got from meth?
Oh man, it was the same as alcohol. You know, it was, you know, meth gave me I mean, I talked a lot. I still talk a lot, you know, but it was like nonstop, you know, and like I felt like I was connecting with people, you know, and they probably didn't give a shit about what I was saying. They were just pretending to listen, you know, but I felt like I was connecting with people, and I felt like, you know, I loved that life of the party feeling, you know, and that's what it gave me, you know, that kind of thing. I felt like I could get shit done. I didn't do shit, but I felt like I could get shit done, you know, and that felt good to me, you know. Like I said, I couldn't stop. Just couldn't stop.
And how old were you from the transition from meth to where you started taking, was it heroin after meth?
Yeah, that was between, so I graduated high school at 17, started doing meth around 18. And then, you know, I rode that for a while. Heroin filtered in a little bit there, but meth was pretty prevalent to me, and it was easier to get. And then right around 21, 22, 23, I think I made a full switch, you know, to heroin. Meth started to filter out a little bit. Heroin became easier to get, you know, and then heroin became less of a party drug and more of a daily ritual, you know, and that's when, you know, the sickness was kicking in and shit like that. So,
Well, how old were you when you had Trevor?
20, oh shit, I'm 46, Trevor's 24. Yeah, 24, 25.
And you're still on drugs at this point?
Oh yeah. And I would have, you know, moments of, you know, I would paint myself into a corner with my family and friends and go, okay, you've been using drugs, and I would go to detox and stay clean for a little bit. And then I really used that as just a way to like placate everybody so I could get back to doing what I was doing, you know. And I hit it pretty good for a while. I hit it as best I could, you know. For a long time, for a few years, the worst part of it was that I just was broke all the time. You know, I was still like, you know, maintaining some family stuff. I was still maintaining somewhat of a diet. I was still, you know, doing some of the things I was supposed to be doing. But, you know, as time went on, I cared less and less and less about that shit, you know, and more about getting high. So being able to maintain any sort of life became almost impossible after a while, you know. And so Trevor's mom ended up filing for divorce because of it, you know, and things like that. And just kept running. Cool, one less thing to worry about, you know, more heroin for me, you know. Yeah, and that was the attitude, you know.
How did you meet Trevor's mom?
I met Trevor's mom through a friend. So the guy, so I mentioned playing hockey a lot, right? So there was a family, you know, like we over the years of playing club hockey, you know, like a lot of the kids, we ended up on the same teams year after year. So we became really close to them. And then I ended up, and like, again, I said, my club hockey coach, he, you know, started coaching for the Catholic high school. I went to St. Mary's, and a lot of those kids went to St. Mary's, you know, and to play for him. And so my goalie, was the goalie that I had from 6th grade all the way through high school. You know, he introduced me to Trevor's mom. He worked with her at Lion's Choice, you know, yeah. And so I introduced me to her, and we just took off after that.
And is your relationship with her now, what does that look like?
It's good. It's kosher. You know, it's pretty much not because, you know, once I got out of prison and got back in, you know, we were cool. We had some tiffs early on, you know, but pretty much after I got out of prison, it was kind of like, you know, like, let's not fight about anything. You know what I'm saying? We really just didn't, you know. It was pretty cool the whole time. You know, there was there was always something, you know, something would come up here and there, but it was pretty easy with her. You know, she did her thing, I did my thing, and we just, you know, she was real easy going with Trevor and me seeing him, and stuff like that. And she just, when I got home, we saw her at one of Trevor's T-ball games or something like that. And she just said, just stay out this time because he missed you. You know what I'm saying? So I was like, yeah, done. I'll never go back. And it wasn't that prison scared me. It was just that I was sick of being that way. You know what I'm saying? I was sick of not showering. I was sick of not eating. I was sick of lying to my family, so I had to do something different. I was sick of who I was, And so I set out to become who I am today. But yeah, she made it easy. Now she lives in California, and they moved to California in Trevor's right before Trevor's junior year of high school, and so she's out there now. So I really don't, and she transferred child support to him, so I pay him, and stuff like that instead of her now, so it works out pretty well. We have very little communication these days.
How did you go to prison? What got you there?
Oh man, so this is another long story. We could probably say it for hours, but so back in the day, so remember I said that I used to placate my family, like I would paint myself into a corner, as I call it, and I would okay, everybody, I've been using drugs, like shame on me, let me go to treatment for a little bit, and stuff like that. And so my grandpa, God love him, we were at the time, Trevor's mom and I were living in Seward, and it was right before we got married, and I did that thing. I said, okay, I went to treatment, and I went to a 28-day inpatient treatment, and while I was in treatment, my grandfather had bought a house over in the Christie area, Holly Hills and Wanda. And he gave it to us. He was like, here you go, here's a house. He was hoping to bring me out of the, we lived by Seward back then. So he thought that because I lived in that area, it was where I was getting the drugs from. And so that he was trying to help me get away from it, which, it just followed me. But yeah, so, we ended up in that house, and, things just kind of snowballed from there.
They snowballed from there. So to get you into prison.
Yeah. So she ended up, let's see. So when she left, so I had a buddy of mine, ended up moving in the garage, and things went from bad to worse, as they did, as far as usage and really the things that I would do to continue my usage is what really damaged it. You know what I'm saying? For all intents and purposes, if I had an endless supply of money and wasn't going to kill myself, I probably would have made it through, But the problem was money. I spent every bit we had on it, and then some. And I would take money out of her purse, and I returned Christmas presents, and I did all kinds of crazy shit. And I stole, from family, and it always caused problems, And eventually, she divorced me and left. She sat me down one day and she said, "You need to leave." And I was like, "No, this is my grandfather's house, so you need to go, or let's try and work it out," is what I said. And she said, "Fine, fuck it." And she got up, packed her shit, and took Trevor and left. And I was high at the time, and I immediately called my friends and was like, "Hey, Brandon moved out. Guess if you need a place to stay, you're good to go here." So it turned into pretty quickly turned into a drug house, And several months of that, and as we were going through the divorce, the cops kicked in the front door, and that's where, and they took me and my one friend to jail, and one of the other girls, but let everybody else go, and that's for possession, yeah. Which I for years never looked myself up on CaseNet, and thought it was possession for heroin because we had heroin in the house, but apparently they didn't find it, and they charged me with possession of marijuana. Over 28 grams or whatever it is like that. So I'm going to be looking to get that expunged pretty soon since it's legal now. But, yeah. And I went to jail. For that, they took me overnight and released me on my own recognizances, or I got bailed out or something like that. And, went to court, got put on probation. So I was on probation, still using heroin, and, just dropping dirty. And so they're like, I just knew that one day when I walked in to see the probation officer, I was going to get arrested. So I just stopped going, So I didn't see him for a while. And then, of course, they caught up to me and took me back to jail. Went to court, got bailed out, went to court, and they put me on house arrest. So, okay, I kept using, and I was still using, and they Eventually I just cut the fucking anklet off, you know, because I was trying to maintain a habit and stay in the house. I could go out for a couple hours during the day, but then I had to be back at a certain time and shit like that. So I said, fuck it. I cut the anklet off. And they came and got me. You know, eventually they showed up at the house and were like, you haven't been to CPO, you cut your anklet off or whatever like that, you're going to jail. So I went to jail. I didn't get bailed out this time. I was like, just don't bail me out. It's going to cost too much. And I went to prison. So that time I did, you know, some time in the workhouse and then some time in bioterror and diagnostics, and then went to Boonville for an 84-day treatment. And that's a new prison treatments, you know. And then we got released and then went right back to using that night, you know. So, and that was in between. And then 6 months later, I got picked up again because I hadn't been to see my PO. And that's in between those prison stays is when I was like, I hit bottom and I was like, I can't do this anymore.
So from the first time going into prison, what was the feeling like going in there?
Oh man, it was well, I guess, man, it was a little bit of relief, you know, at first, because you know you live with that overshadowing like power, just like they're gonna pick me up. When are they gonna get me? You know what I'm saying? Like I'm astounded, you know, like they're not gonna ignore the fact that I'm supposed to be on probation. You know, and so you're always looking around the corner, you know, like where are the cops at, you know, like, and every time I'd wake up in the morning and I'd look out and see a cop car on the street messing with somebody else, and I'm like, I just knew they're there for me, you know. So a lot of that, we're like, okay, good, it's time to start over, like, I'm good. There was some relief, you know. There was a lot of fear, you know. I mean, I hadn't been the best person on the street, so I wasn't sure who I was gonna run into in the prison system, you know, so I was a little bit afraid of like, okay, like, all right, who's gonna be after me? You know, who do I owe money to? Who did this or that happen with? You know, and stuff like that. But you know, after a couple of months, it kind of goes away. You know, and you just get into it. You know, you just find your routine and go through the shit.
Were you using in prison at all?
I did not. My first trips, when I went to the workhouse, I had tasted and made some hooch. You know, they tell you how to do that. Hooch is like prison alcohol. You know? A little bit of orange juice and some yeast and some sugar, you know, and you gotta do some shit. But I ended up going to the hole for it and all this shit like that, you know. But once I got from there to DOC, I didn't have any go connections, you know. But when I went the second time, I had stopped. I was ready to stop. I took a couple of, some was trazodone the first couple of weeks I was in the workhouse, and then I was like, well, shit, I can't do that because I want to stay sober. I'm just exhibiting the same behavior, so I stopped doing that, you know, so yeah.
How do you, is it because you hit rock bottom that you were able to like look at that and say, I need to stay off that shit?
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
Okay.
I knew at that point, I'd been through enough, you know, I went through treatments on the street, I went through pieces in Farmington. I would go to this place in Farmington for 28 days. So they're always, you know, recovery triggers, you know, things like that. So I knew all the lingo, you know, I knew things. I knew some stuff about recovery, you know, and I knew that I couldn't do it on my own. And I knew that if I was like still picking shit, like, you know, someone's trazodone, you know, that they would bring the meds, he would cheek it and then give it to me for a biscuit or whatever, you know. And it was like this. How am I gonna say no later? You know, just kind of the thought occurred to me, like, if I'm still doing shit, if I'm still taking things, especially if they're not mine, you know, like medicine, it's not mine. Like, I'm looking to get high. I'm gonna keep doing the same thing. And I knew I needed to do something different. So that's when I was able to stop. I ended up in my second time in, same thing. I ended up in a cell in diagnostics with a guy that was getting Seroquel somehow through the prison system, and he had a bag of it, and he had one leg, and he had a bag of it in his shoe, and he was always like, "You want something else?" And I turned it down the whole time. I was like, "No, man, I got, for real, dude. I want to stay sober from here on out. You know, if I'm taking, I know it's just Seroquel, but it's the same thing. I'm doing the same shit if I take it, you know, and I didn't want to do that anymore."
What's the craziest thing you saw in prison?
Oh man, I didn't see a whole lot of crazy shit, man. Just you know, I was in a low-level camps, and I got to, you know, do some pretty cool shit for real. There were, you know, I guess Bonterre is a death camp, and they have, lethal injection there. And so every now and then you would see the guys that were on death row, they would lock down the place, and then they would let them out with chains on in the yard for half an hour. But all they could do was walk back and forth, and then they would take them back in, that. I had gotten staph while I was in there, so I had a pretty big open wound in my arm, saw a bunch of fights, but the craziest thing that happened to me was the second time I went there. I was sitting in diagnostics, and they had us on 23-hour lockdown. We only got out for meals, and because it was so overpopulated, so the day room that we had, they had filled with bunks, and people were in them, and they wouldn't let us out. So we basically were stuck in our cell the whole time, and they came and got me one day, and they said, Matt Tinker, go up to R&O. So I went up to R&O, and they're like, all right, Mr. Tinker, you're going next door. Now, next door to diagnostics is a level 5 camp. That's where all the rapists and murderers and shit are, and I said, I'm doing what? I'm going where? They're like, you're going next door to the other side. And I'm like, whoa, hold up. Because I knew that was I got like a 3-year sentence, I have a possession charge. Like, what did I do to have to go over there? Like, oh, no, not that side. You're going to 11 house. Let's work release. You get to smoke cigarettes and drink coffee. And I'm like, where do I sign? Get me out of this hellhole that I'm in, So prison like that, for me, it wasn't that kind of trip. You know what I'm saying? It was a different rodeo for me. And everybody has their own experiences there. And from what I understand, it is what you make of it. You know what I'm saying? If you go in there acting like a shithead, you're going to get treated like a shithead, and I've always carried myself well, so I really didn't have any problems with anybody, for real. And then the most of the people there were less worried about me than they were themselves, so it was, it was all good. Didn't have to fight much, no, a couple little squabbles and stuff like that, but, it was more chest puffing than anything, from where I was. I mean, there were plenty of fights that are going on, or plenty of things that I could have done, but it just didn't seem worth it. I just want to get my time done and get out of here, you know what I'm saying? So I didn't invest in any of the drama.
And then, so how old are you when you were finished with prison altogether?
Oh, gosh. Let's see. So I'm 14 years sober, 46, 32. So I was done probably 33, 34, something like that. I was done. And then around that time, I had walked down my parole, which took about a year, and I was out. So I had done, so I was like 34, I think, like that, 33 when I got done with everything.
Did it feel like you were at a second part of your life?
Oh yeah, brand new. It was a brand new rebuilding. There was so much old around me, though. You know what I'm saying? Environment wise, because my dad owned an upholstery shop that my grandpa started in 1950s. That's where I worked, and when I had built some trust back, I went back. I got fired by my own dad. That's how bad I was, and but I went back to work after I built some trust up. I went back to work for him, and so it was to say people, and I had to make amends to all those people, and and do what I had to do to stay sober. But and I moved when I got out of prison. I moved right back into the same apartment that my dad owned, that I had lived in before, and there was just, people had written on the walls. So it's like a story. So it's like reliving this shit over and over again. I had a strong program, so it was doable for the time being until it wasn't anymore. And when it wasn't anymore, I would call my mom. I'm like,
what about the environment specifically made you say, I have to get out of here?
Well, I had went through, originally, just getting out of prison, new life, new sobriety, like I'm turning the stump, I'm turning everything over. It really feels really good, and then life happens, and then you start to have to deal with emotions again. And when those emotions come on and you don't have anything to dull them like drugs and alcohol, they're strong as hell. And so like I had went through something with a girl, like my daughter's mom, we went through a bit of a rough patch when we started dating, it was on again, off again, on again, off. Do you fucking like me or not? You know what I'm saying? And I couldn't handle that. I couldn't sit there and look at those walls that I had used in and done all that dirt in, any longer. It was like, okay, this is not a good place for me to be. You know what I'm saying? No amount of prayer, no amount of work it could have, you know what I'm saying? But I was like, if I got an option, let's use that instead. Let's get out of this old environment. So I did that. I went and moved in with my mom, and went on from there.
Were there any times after your sobriety where you were like extremely tempted to use again?
Sure. Oh yeah. Well, yes and no. There were. my first experience with that was after I hadn't been out real long. I was at my mom's house. I hadn't been out real long. I was still living in that old apartment, but I was at my mom's house, and they had left to go do something. We're gonna go do this. We'll be back to get you. Yada yada yada. Just watch you. And so I'm sitting there, and just the thought comes to me. I'm like, I know there's alcohol in the closet, right? And I didn't have an overwhelming urge to drink. I wasn't faced with temptation, but the thought was there. I know where the alcohol is at, And before, when I was using, I didn't need an urge. All I needed to know was where it was, And sometimes I didn't even need to know where it was. I would find it because I would just look for it. It was so much habit for me to use, And so I changed the habit. When I thought about it, I went outside, started doing push-ups. That was what I did at that time, And so there's always been, I never got into sobriety to forget. I think that's our worst enemy, is trying to forget what we've done in the past. Like, I have to remember what got me to that point. There was not a lot of good times that got me to a point of saying, this sucks. You know what I'm saying? The highs weren't working anymore. I couldn't use the same amounts. I couldn't afford the amounts I wanted to use. Everything, that had happened to me, ended up being a shit show. I mean, I have a lot of funny stories about it, but I have a lot of shitty stories about it too. You know what I'm saying? And I used to tell Trevor, I would be at home and I would make a candid remark, and I would go, well, this one time when I was smoking crack, and we would laugh about it. And that's the beauty of sobriety, is I can laugh about that shit now. But then I would say, but the reality of of the situation was that this is where I fucked up, or this is what happened next. You know what I'm saying? And that's some shit that, I don't ever want you to go through, and there was just so much turmoil surrounded around my use of drugs that yeah, like it. They say in the program, they say, you're all, keep your last drink close to you, I mean, that's what I did, I just remember that shit. And, so temptation is not there. There's been times where I've thought about it. I got pissed at somebody, at my wife or my ex-wife or whoever, and just be like, fuck it, you know what I could go drink at them. But yeah, that's what we say, drink at them. Like, I'd be drinking because I'm trying to get back at them, but I'm hurting myself. You know what I'm saying? That's why I would drink at them. But that doesn't, for me, it doesn't stop. It's like, like some people can go out and they go, oh yeah, I'm gonna go have a beer because I'm pissed off, or I need a shot or whatever like that. And I'm like, I need a fucking, a 12-pack, 2 syringes and a fourth. Let's go, because I'm not ready. I might as well call prison and make reservations. Like, hey, keep my bed warm because I'll be there soon. That's just the way I do things. That's the way I always did. And I don't have any reason to suspect that I wouldn't do that now, And so, my history shows me the whole 15, 20 years that I used, I mean, it was a steady progression. And then even when I had breaks, it was right back to the same thing over and over and over again. So why would I stop that, The only way for me is to stay away from it altogether, So that'll damn the thought, though. The thought's there. I mean, I might remember, I don't know, like fucking trusting a fart the wrong way one time. Yeah, that was a bad memory. You know what I'm saying? But the same thing happens with drugs. Like, yeah, I did it. I know what happens there. I know what that path leads me to. Let's see what these other paths do.
I don't know if it's you who told me this story, or maybe someone at the gym who had told me something around this, and you'll remember it. But there was a time where it was either Trevor or Jordan was looking for a toy out in the leaves. You know what I'm talking about? What was that story?
It was, I was right before, I think it was right before Jordan's mom and I got married. We lived we had gotten an apartment over on Bowen in the Crown Gillette area. And yeah, so he had ordered, he was into Dragon Ball Z back then, and he ordered this toy. It came from Japan. It took like 6 weeks to get there, And he was so freaking excited to have this toy, I mean, and he back then he was 8, 9, years old probably, and 7, 8, 9, something like that. And we get the toy, and we leave my work. He was at my work. He was coming over for the weekend or whatever, and we go in the house, and we get in the house, and he's unpacking his shit, and he unpacks his toy, and it's missing an arm, like the arm, because they were detachable. You could put different hand signs on it or whatever. And he's missing an arm, and I'm like, he's freaked out, and he's so sad, and I got it. I understood, you know what I'm saying? I'm like, this sucks. So we went outside and looked. It was fall. So there's leaves everywhere, and there's a little yellow, little tiny yellow man, like, and no bigger than an inch and a half. You know what I'm saying? Our toy arm out on the street, right? And we're like out there looking, and I come back in. I'm like, okay, we can't find it. You know, I come back in. I'm like getting ready to order him another one, and we're talking. You know, I'm talking with Jordan's mom, and I turn around. It just hit me. I turn around, and I go, you know, because this is happening. I said, you know, if that was heroin, I'd still be outside. I'd still be outside looking for it. And she goes, yeah, I know. Let's go. So we got our flashlights and went outside. I mean, I know soon as I stepped off the steps, took 2 steps and looked down, and there it was in a fucking sidewalk. Like, where did you come from? Because you weren't here before. You know what I'm saying? But it was, you know, I choose to believe that was my higher power saying, look, you did the right thing and you need to continue doing this shit. You know what I'm saying? It was just significant for me because I spent hours, you know, like somebody would lose a fucking, you know, a little bit of heroin somewhere, and a whole crew would be looking for it, knowing damn good and well someone had it in their pocket, you know, but we'd still look for it just on the chance that we might find it. You know, I scoured carpets, I smoked cat litter, you know, I did all that shit, you know, and back then, at that point, it was just time for me, like, if I would do this for heroin, I could be able to do this for myself. And if I wouldn't have found it then, I would have spent the whole night out there looking for it. I would have exhausted everything, you know, and that's just the mindset that I had. It's an absolute true story.
Wow. Are you religious?
I'm more spiritual now than I am religious. I believe in God. I believe in Jesus Christ. I don't believe in organized religion anymore, for real. I've just had a kind of a disconnect with that. You know, I was brought up Lutheran, and then I converted to Catholicism right before I married my ex-wife, Jordan's mom, and thought it was where I needed to be. I thought that's where I was leading. You know, I got out of prison, and Trevor's mom had married a Catholic guy, and so Trevor was going to St. Dominic's, and I met this girl, and she was a parishioner of St. Dominic's, and I'm like, it's a sign, you know, like I'm supposed to be, and it, for all intents and purposes, it probably was. I was probably meant to go through these journeys, you know, on some level to make my own conclusions. You know, I don't know that I've wronged the system or I've wronged God in any way, shape, or form, you know, but I just know that it was a good time in my life to become Catholic, and I did, you know, and so I made the decision myself. My ex-wife told me, she said, you don't have to become Catholic to marry me, but I want to have a marriage in a Catholic church, and yada, yada, yada. And so I was like, well, I liked it. I was going to church with her at the time. I liked making the sign of the cross and doing all the cool stuff, you know, and the people there seemed pretty cool, you know, like accepting of me and all my tattoos and where I had come from, and I got the stories to tell, you know. A lot of these people hadn't seen the stuff that I had seen, you know, so I felt like I had something to give, and so I became Catholic, and ended up on the parish council for a little while, you know, and just giving back and trying to give my 2 cents and do what I'm supposed to be doing, and you know, the church is separated. So we had, you know, as Catholicism is dying here in America, you know, and churches are having to combine and make new schools and stuff like that in order for them to survive. And that happened in our parish. And I just saw a bunch of like hate, you know, like the parishioners from one church and the other church, they were just, it was like West Side Story, man. Like, you know, the Sharks and the Jets. It was like they were going to fight over just like whose church got to win. And, you know, it was like, where the fuck is Jesus in all this? You know what I'm saying? Where's the love? I mean, I thought this was all about Christianity. And then I stood up in a parishioner. They said, well, we need to do this to earn money and make money and to make this all work. And who do you think our target audience is? And I stood up and I said, I don't know if you guys knew this or not, but Catholics don't get a really good reputation out there on the streets. You know what I'm saying? With all the priests molesting kids and all this and that, and, you know, their thing, and abortions and whatever's going on with all this stuff like that. And I'm like, well, our target audience needs to be people that need God. You know, like, you gotta find those people out there that are lost, that are coming in. We need to make those people that are our target audience. And they just kind of like, yeah, okay. And that was the last parish council meeting I was at. And I don't think it was because I said anything wrong. I mean, I think it dissolved after that. But it just started to lose my faith in the Catholic Church and in organized religion. You know, my grandpa had told me years ago, he's like, I don't need a church to pray in, you know, and so, you know, and I think, you know, in the Bible, you know, it talks about Jesus destroying the temples, you know, and I think that, you know, really what they're saying is that, you know, our temple is us. You know, we are the temple. We are the people that bring Christ to others and bring God to others. And then I don't really have to, you know, tithe to do that. You know, I give over myself if I can, you know, and stuff like that. And a myriad of experiences like that have turned me off to organized religion. I think about it a lot though, like maybe going back and things like that. But and maybe part of it's laziness, But I also I was in another parish council meeting where they had all these committees together, and they were talking about the next tithe that they were going to offer people. We're going to have to give money for it, for this and that and the other thing, and how it was going to get spent. And this lady stood up and she goes, "People can't afford to be Catholic anymore, man." She's like, "We got the ACA, we got this type, and we're going to ask them for more money. Like, how can people afford to be Catholic? Plus tuition keeps going up. Plus, and what's really weird about that too is their costs are being driven up by non-Catholics. They're saying that, they're telling us that because daycare costs are so high, it's cheaper for families that are non-Catholic to send their kids to the pre-K1, pre-K2, pre-K3s that they have available at Catholic schools than it is to send them to daycare. So they got parishioners, there are people that aren't parishioners that are sending their kids there. So the churches are losing money through that as well, apparently, and so, I'm not the first foremost, when I say I'm not the first or the foremost authority on this. This is just my experience of what led me to my beliefs, and I don't hate religion. I don't hate organized religion. It just, for me, it was not a good fit anymore. And so I just kind of backed out, after the divorce of I was on my way out anyways, but as Jordan's mom and I got divorced, I really stepped fully out of it. There were some good people. There were lots of good people there, but I also had an experience. I was on hospitality, so I was a greeter at the church, man, I get it. Everybody goes through something, but there's the amount of people that would just ignore you. "Hi, welcome to St. Dominic, how you doing?" And just ignore you and walk by. Like, I thought we were all here for the same thing. I thought we were all here, like, this is my place of refuge, this is my place of peace. And maybe I'm being judgmental on those people, I don't know, but I just saw it too, and I felt like it's too much. You can at least acknowledge, things like that. And that's what led me to be where I'm at. Again, I'm not doing anything spectacular with my life as far as that goes right now. I'm just trying to be mindful. I do a lot of meditation these days. I'm very spiritual. I think that I have a higher power, and I call God, and He watches over me, and I talk to Him quite often, I always pray in the name of Jesus Christ because that's what I was taught. I believe He was a really good, was a real figure in history, and I just believe that us as people reinterpret Him wrong, and I believe that the church does too, and I believe that they exploit that. So, yeah.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more as far as interpretate. Like, it's gone. The Bible has gone through tons and tons of revisions. Of course, it's going to be misinterpreted somewhere along those lines, right? Yeah. So what would you attribute? Would it be spirituality? Would it be your family? Like, what was the driving force to get you to be, when you hit rock bottom? What were you looking at to say this is?
Oh man, probably. I'll tell you this much. So probably Trevor was a big part of that, and so I said originally, I said, I woke up one day and I had run out of ideas, right? And what that means is that, back then I was telling a lot of lies. I had a lot of friends that were going out boosting. They had a fence and they would go to, Walmarts and Chinooks and wherever, and they would steal what they needed to steal, and they would go out to the country and do it sometimes, and they would go to the fence shop and they would come back with all kinds of money. I just didn't have the balls to do that. I would rather sit at home and wait for them to come back, and beg for shit. And plus they were staying at my house, so I knew they were bringing me back something anyways, you know what I'm saying? And so, and I just, that's what they did. And so while I was waiting for them, I had lies going, my friends, my family, I had things going that I needed to sell. Sometimes I would have this whole list of shit because I needed to remember which one I told last. I always had something going on. And I always had a job. I'm getting a job at this. I need to buy some clothes. And so I had woke up one day and I was dope sick and I was, withdrawn from alcohol, and I didn't have any lies to tell. I couldn't think of any. I was like, I'm fucked, and that's kind of the reason it started. Like, the process was like, damn, I'm nothing. I'm a piece of shit. For real. And I thought about Trevor, and I thought, because, the divorce had already happened and, had been a year or two. And I saw him, the cops came and got me one day while Trevor was there, and his mom had gotten tipped off, and she came and picked him up while the cops were taking me away. And so she signed, I had to have visitation with him. He luckily got to be at my mom's house, but he didn't get to come to my house anymore and spend the night. So the most of the time that I spent with him while I was using, when I was at my mom's house, I would go over there and spend the night and yada, yada, yada. But I would be dope sick 90% of the time, you know? And so the quality of time that we spent together was horrible. It was horrible. You know, I would sit in the chair, falling asleep, or just could not wait to go get some, you know, I need to get fucking my dad to get here and give me some money, or I need to get the dope man here, you know, whatever it was. And so I could just never seem to be high enough at those times. I was really bad at like managing my dope sickness, you know, like I would do all my drugs, like it's going to be okay. And then I would have to be 3 days without, you know? And so I thought about that, and I thought about what kind of parent I was, and I wasn't one, you know? And, you know, I got sober and found out that parenting is really difficult for real. You know what I'm saying? It's one of the most beautiful things in the world, but God, it's hard, you know, like, in an easy way. It's really, really weird to say that, but you know, I mean, like, I love being a parent, but just the emotions, you know, like this morning before I came here, I had to swat my son, you know, my 19-month-old, he was getting something, and and he looked at me and did it again, so I had to lay him down and swat him, and it broke my heart to spank him, you know what I'm saying? It wasn't like I hit him, but you know, like, he didn't even cry for real. He tried to figure out, should I cry, should I not? You could see that confusion in his face, but at the same time, my heart was breaking, you know, so like, that's what I mean. So when I woke up that one morning, and I just felt like, you know, like, man, I'm a shitty dad. Like, I'm a shitty dad, you know, and then Trevor and our relationship, man, it just proves my point, you know. I mean, now, I mean, I got sober, got out, man, we spent a lot of time together. We had martial arts together, you know, we always trained together, you know, and I brought him up through that, and he's got my sobriety date tattooed on his chest, you know, and things like that. So our relationship is super cool. You know, he's becoming quite the young man these days, you know, and shit like that. But yeah, I would say that Trevor was probably one of the main things, you know, that and just my family. I just knew they were looking at me sideways, you know, all the time. I wasn't trusted in their houses, man. I got caught stealing out of purses and wallets and shit like that, you know, so, yeah, it was a moment of clarity. Like, ooh, I am a fuck, you know, and that's what did it.
What do you think your and Trevor's relationship would look like now had you never done drugs?
Oh shit, probably would be not. Or had I never done drugs, man, you know, it's hard to say. I could speculate, you know, and honestly, like, I like to say that, you know, I don't wish anything would be different. You know, I don't want to go back and redo anything. I don't want to change anything. You know, I believe everything happened for a reason, and because I look around at what I have now, and how blessed I am. You know, I have I have a wife and 2 ex-wives. I have 3 children by different women. They're all beautiful. They're all their own personalities, you know. And you know what? My life is complicated for real. Like, you know, to have all that and to do what I do, like, I complicated, you know. But man, I really was thinking to look back, like, I wouldn't have it any other way, you know. But I imagine that, you know, had I not taken the path that I had taken, you know, that Trevor and I would just have, you know, your average kind of relationship, which is, I don't know, not really what I wanted anyways. I think our relationship is better than average now, you know? So, yeah. So, yeah, like I said, I wouldn't change anything for real. Just keep it the way it is.
So so where we start at was, what, 33s when you were getting back into martial arts seriously?
Yeah. So I guess 32, I got sober. I got into, let's see, I got out of prison, and I was, you know, a couple of things that went down, and ended up at my mom's house, like I had said, and I ended up watching, man, I had a love for martial arts since I was a kid. And I saw Bruce Lee, you know, the Karate Kid, then Van Damme, and Steven Seagal, and I'm like, I need to be a fucking martial artist, you know. But like I said, hockey won out. I finally got to take some Taekwondo when I was 14, and then hockey won out. And then I got to take some kickboxing when I was 20, and then drugs went out, you know, and stuff like that. And but I was sitting at home, and I didn't have a job at the time, you know. I had I had the first Christmas that I had out and sober, I had asked for a punching bag, you know, and I got a punching bag. I hung it up in my mom's basement, and I bought a bunch of books, you know, and I'm like, I'm just gonna practice, you know, I'm gonna do what I remember from Taekwondo and kickboxing that I took in the past. And I was going to practice. And then the next thing you know, I'm watching The Ultimate Fighter on TV. And I'm like, man, how fucking cool would it be to train like that, you know? And then a couple months later, it's just like 2009. I'm in the gym working out. You know, I got out of prison. I joined a gym. And I'm working out. And this older guy they had that was a trainer there. He was a black belt in karate, Kimbo karate, and I was doing some exercise, and he came up and he said, "Hey, let me show you another version of that might work better for you." And I was like, "Cool," And then as he showed it to me, and I'm like, "Oh, that's great," And he's like, "Here, by the way," and he handed me this pamphlet. He's like, "I'm starting this karate self-defense class here. It'd be great if you could, come try it out." And I was like, "Sure, man, it's cool." And I was like, "Well, this is." God is actually, obviously pointing me in the right direction, in the direction of this guy. So I went to one of his classes, and the first class I went to was like 5 women and me, and, right. I just walked in. I was like, okay, well, I guess it's go time, And I just started hammer fisting people, but no, they're like wearing like, gym clothes and white belts and shit like that. And we go through all these like self-defense moves. And I'm like, well, this is pretty cool. I'm like, I didn't have anything else. I had no transportation. I didn't know where gyms were, and, for real at the time. It was like I was just born, so, I mean, I could have looked it up, but, and so I was like, I'm going to stick with it. I'm going to keep going. I'm going to go a few more times, right? So I went a few more times, and it ended up that all those ladies like just disappeared. I don't know if it was because I came in or what, but they did, and it was just me and him a lot, and me and him and one other person. So he started teaching me some boxing. And then he started teaching me some kickboxing, and then he started, like when we had other people there, we did a lot of pad work and a lot of, stuff. But then when it was like classes were just me and him, he was teaching me katas, so I became a practitioner of karate through that. And I decided I wanted to do some fighting, so I didn't have a whole lot of sparring partners. I had a couple, and I knew I needed more. So I started going to I found some MMA gyms in the area, and I started going there. And so I was combining the two, and had my first couple of fights that way, and
Whether they were karate fights or were they?
They were kickboxing.
Kickboxing.
Yeah, I did one karate. So I did well. So the guy that I was training with the karate, I kept training with him. I ended up as I was training with the MMA gyms and stuff like that. I did one karate tournament, and then I was like, this point fighting is not for me. Like I want to get knocked out or knock somebody out, and this is what I want to do. So I took that path. Now I did continue the belt system. I ended up testing. We took me out to a affiliate of his in Sullivan, Missouri. I tested in front of a panel of black belts with a group of brown belts, and I got my black belt in Bushido karate and stuff like that. Meantime, but I took the path of kickboxing as a fighting style that I picked up on. And so, and I didn't really want to do MMA. I trained with MMA fighters though, so I had to practice it, And at the time, my wife, Jordan's mom, she didn't want me doing MMA. She didn't want me kickboxing either, And then part of that is just this is who I am, became who I was, and it was who I was always meant to be. I feel like, And she didn't want me doing any of it, and I felt like ultimately she was telling me not to be who I am, and that was a problem. I felt like that was a problem. You know what I'm saying? And I didn't want to be one of those fathers that is conceited to life because I had kids and stuff like that. I wanted to teach my children how to live, and that was, or to follow their dreams. No matter what, I can still be a father and be a kickboxer. You know what I'm saying? Like, why you're basically telling me that I can't do both? Why not? Plenty of people that do. Why not me? And it really felt like it's just, this is who I am, and I guess we really just weren't right for each other to begin with, and stuff like that. But anyways, so I had a couple of fights, and then she told me not to do anymore. My first fight went really well. I won in 38 seconds. My second fight didn't go so well. I got knocked out, and she put her foot down. So I was training with MMA guys anyway, so I started training jiu-jitsu. I'm like, okay, fine, we'll do jiu-jitsu competitions, In the meantime, I got affiliated with the gym I'm with now, River City Warriors, and I started doing jiu-jitsu with them and Muay Thai with them. And I was shortly after that my sensei had needed to stop training me. His life got in the way and stuff like that, and so we parted ways. And so I just was left with River City Warriors, which was a blessing. And I started fighting for them, and after a while, I started doing, tournaments, stuff like that, and jiu-jitsu tournaments, and started doing, kickboxing tournaments with my ex-wife. Hated, it was just, my son later said, Dad, I hated when you would compete because you would go compete, win, and then come home and have to deal with that, like thickness there. was just so thick, and then she would be pissed off at you for a week and yada, yada, yada,
Did it feel like you were losing out on being able to appreciate that victory?
Yeah, absolutely. 100%. Yeah. And, she tried from time to time, but mainly, it was her way of the highway, but, and I just couldn't take it anymore, but that's a whole nother story for another day. But, yeah, so I kept trying that path, and we got divorced. Her and I got divorced, and, my coach was like, all right, you're going pro. Like, you've been training way too long not to go pro, not to make any money doing this. And so Stan and Coach Eric Clarkson, yeah. Eric Clarkson was my head coach, and yeah, he said, yeah, you're going pro. And I was like, cool. So in 2019, I signed a pro contract to do MMA fights. I was like, well, if we're going pro, let's do MMA. So we trained for that, and then I went to get my physical, and I ended up had a hernia, and we had to cancel the fight. I had to get surgery. Shit like that. And then I came back from surgery and decided, well, let's break into might as well take a couple amateur fights first before going pro again, just because, I ended up not getting licensed. I didn't turn my license in because it was far enough away. And so I was like, well, I'm just going to do a couple amateur fights because I had just had surgery and stuff like that. So I got an amateur MMA fight, and I won that by choke in 38 seconds. And then got scheduled for another fight a couple months later, and boom, fucking COVID hit, and so it was just like nobody knew what the hell was going on with anything, so it was like, okay, you're gonna fight in May, okay, great, oh, that show's canceled, you're gonna fight in July, okay, oh, that show's canceled, all right, you're gonna fight in October, oh, this guy got COVID, and I was like, fuck, oh, I fought so I right before COVID, I fought that MMA fight, and then I fought a kickboxing match a month later, and then COVID hit. Yeah, and then but along that it was so much. I put so much training into those fights, and that didn't happen. I lost my heart for MMA, and I was like, I want to be salt or pepper. It's either white or black. So I'm either going to grapple or I'm going to kickbox. I don't want to do both. You know what I'm saying? And so coach was like, well. My coach, Eric, was like, well, it'd be nice if we had a professional kickboxer because I was coaching at the time too. And he's like, it'd be nice if you were a professional kickboxer, it would look good, for us all and stuff like that. And I was like, let's do that. Let's go that path, So I had another couple of kickboxing matches, and, my path to where I'm at now has been a little rocky. I had a great amateur career. I was like, 8-1, 7-1, something like that, so everything looked good, and I accepted a pro fight, and just I got demolished, and I really think I just, it wasn't myself going into it, I got knocked out in the first round, my first pro fight, and I then I had another one, and same fucking thing happened, and I was fighting below 180, and I haven't had a lot of. I think that has something to do with it. You know what I'm saying? I think the older that I get, the more weight that I cut just makes me susceptible to other things. So this next fight, I got a fight coming up in 3 weeks, May 13th. I'm looking to redeem myself. I'm fighting at 185 this time, and I feel a lot better. Going into it, and I've made a lot of improvements in my defense and my guard, and I'm just looking to come in there and prove to everybody that, shit happens. You know what I'm saying? Shit happens. I was probably in the wrong weight class to begin with, things like that, because that was back when I was going to go pro the first time, 170 seemed like the ideal weight class for me, and I never did actually get to fight at 170 because the MMA fight that I did, the guy that was cutting weight, or we were cutting weight, he didn't make weight, so I got the stop. We did 175, and then the next one was 175, and then the next one, so I never did get to fight at 170 anyways. And then I guess, over the years, I'm 46, and I still got lots of fire in me, so that's why I'm going to keep going till the wheels fall off, you know what I'm saying? And who knows, man, this next fight, I get knocked out or something like that, and it might be the wheels falling off that tells me not to, but I really we don't see that happening again, my mind's right. I'm taking a lot of steps to get my shit together for this, and not, to take it super seriously, and just to go out there and do my best. And, I just feel like a whole different person coming into this fight. So I'm looking at to really put it on.
Fuck yeah. Where's this fight gonna be at?
This one's at River City Casino. So man, May 13th, Shamrock FC, River City Casino. Yeah, I'm just going in to just, like I said, redeem myself, put on a good show, and show what I can actually do, what I'm actually made of, my first 2 losses as a pro, I don't feel like they defined me, it was just something that I had to work through, shit happens, and it's the fight game, I go out there and I do my best, and, it was textbook, I guess the guy that I fought the second time watched the first fight, and I did the exact same thing, and dropped my left, and I don't intend to do that this time. I'm gonna super glue that fucker to my head, and we're going out there. We got a whole new game plan, whole new strategies going into place here, and we're ready to rock.
Awesome. What at 80 years old, how are you going to be involved in the fight game?
At 80? Oh, like when I'm 80? Well, that remains to be seen. God willing, I'm alive still. But yeah, I've thought about that a lot more recently. And there's a lot of shit that I can do. I never really considered. I know definitely the plan was to get several professional fights. Like I want to be a coach. I want to be involved in that way. I want to be as physically involved as I can for as long as I can. And after kickboxing is done, they still have tournaments out there for older individuals. They still have grappling tournaments out there with older weight classes or older divisions. So I intend to compete as long as my body will allow. Right now, being a professional in a local kickboxing, I'm fighting guys that are half my age, sometimes, what I'm saying? But, as I do get older and it becomes apparent that fighting guys half my age is probably not a good idea, I intend to compete at some level, with guys that are my age, But I also want to have the experience as a pro fighter to pass on to people, and not just the technique, because the technique can be taught by anybody that knows it, but there has an understanding of it, I should say. But just to have the that experience to pass on. Like, this is what happened at this moment. This is how I dealt with it at this moment. This is how I dealt with losses. This is how I dealt with victories. This is where I kept training. This is where I taped it up and went. This is where I rested. Like let's follow that. And just kind of want to give that back to people. And put all that together for them. But at 80, I thought, shit, maybe working for the state, as a ref or something like that, if that's possible. I thought about that the other day. I was like, man, I wonder what kind of money those guys make. There's a lot involved in the state, in the sanctioned fights. They got a lot to do, and so I wonder what it takes to get that. I wonder if someone with my experience, life experiences would be a valuable person to them, or if they would want something like that. But that's a path to go. But I think first and foremost would be to contribute back to the gym that's been, my home for all these years. The River City Warriors, and I make that place the best place that people can train as long as I can. Somewhere, somehow, I'm just keep my foot in the door with it any way that I can. Commentary, training people. I could just see myself being like, making Rocky. I'll just be on the sidelines, like, hey, motherfucker, get up. You gotta, whatever it is, But definitely want to be involved in some way, shape, or form.
Who's your favorite fighter of all time?
Oh man. I got a lot. Right now, I really like Nicky Holtzkin. I really like his style. Pereira as a kickboxer. I like him better as a kickboxer than I do an MMA fighter, but I think he, pretty amazing. Donovan Weiss is really, really cool. I've been watching a lot of him lately. Artem Levin. I got Nicky Guanano, Joe Schilling, those guys, stuff like that. Kevin Ross, the Soul Assassin, those guys really, I like to watch a lot.
What does a 22-year-old, 24-year-old, 30-year-old Matt Tinker, what do you think if he could see you as you right now, what would he think of you?
Man, I think he'd be like, that's a cool motherfucker. I mean, honestly, I would hope. I definitely think that the 30-year-old Matt would say that, or 29-year-old Matt would say that, or 25 or 26-year-old Matt would say that. I think 22, 23, 24, I still thought I was cool. So looking at myself in the future, hopefully I would still think like, oh, shit, I become that? Dope. Maybe if I start now, I'll do it better. You know what I'm saying? That might be the thing. But again, like I said, I never want to change anything. But starting sobriety early would have been fine, you know, but going through everything, I want to have the same kids. I want to have the same experiences with women. I want to have all this because I'm better for all that. You know what I'm saying? I mean, they say, don't take advice from someone who's been divorced twice or whatever like that. But shit, I mean, I might be the best person to tell you, man, this is what I put up with. This is what I won't put up with, you know, and, you know, things like that. So I don't know, man. I definitely know that as I started to decline in health, you know, the 26, 27, 28, 29-year-old Matt Tinker would definitely look up to the person that I am. I was still a hothead under that, you know, 24, 23, I was still a hothead, you know what I'm saying, thinking I was a shit. So, you know, I might not have looked at it that way, but definitely a little bit older as things got worse, definitely.
So where should we point people towards to you as far as personal training, as far as kickboxing?
All of it, man. Personal training, kickboxing. You know, we talked a lot about fighting. You know, that's my heart. It's my life. But man, I'm like I said, I'm a career personal trainer, and that means a lot to me to put that on there. You know, it's a career that I made myself. You know, my parents helped me. You know, it was a love that I had, and they saw that, and they bought me a certification, and my first certification. Everything else after that I paid for, but they bought it for me. It was a birthday present. It was an expensive one. I got certified, and I started working part-time. My dad's business, who I was working for, went downhill, and so I made the decision to switch, you know, and it's been a battle. My ex-wife did not want me to, you know, at first was cool, and then she did not want me to do it, so I had to really get into the business of it, you know, and I learned that the business was more than just exercise selection. You know, it was a lot about people. You know, like my whole point with someone when I work with them is not to just give them 2 or 3 months of exercises and get them from point A to point B as quick as possible. And my whole point in to work with someone is to like, let me find out about you, like what makes you tick, what makes you work, because those are those sticking points. You know, when you just, you had a week's worth of cake, you know, or chili or hot dogs or whatever it is. Like, let me talk you through that. You know what I'm saying? Because fitness is a journey, man. It's a lifetime journey, because even if I get it. You got a wedding coming up or something like that, and all you want to do is get into a dress for a day, and then after that, you don't care, fine, I can help you. But for real, if you want to lose weight, no matter how fast or slow, I'm there for you. But once you lose it, no matter how fast or slow you lose it, once you lose it, you have to do something to keep it off. You can't just be like, okay, I'm done, I'm cured, just like recovery. Like, I wake up in the morning, I still got shit I got to do. I'm not cured of alcoholism or addiction, and I'm not cured of my unhealthy habits. You know, I was in reverse. Most people want to lose weight. I desperately wanted to gain it. You know what I'm saying? I desperately wanted to gain weight because I was a skinny drug addict, you know, and I didn't eat a lot, you know, and stuff like that. So I really got into the fact that, you know, fitness is a journey, and it has to be a journey. You know, it has to be something that we have ups and downs with, and I really want to just be on that level with people. Like, I want to share those moments, you know, like, this is how we get past that. Okay, it didn't work, let's do it this way. Let's figure out what makes you tick. And then along the way, we're going to sweat, we're going to laugh, you know, I'm going to give you workouts. Like, the whole thing isn't talking, like, I write workouts that best plan for everybody, you know, and I like to build those up and let those evolve with the, you know, best intentions of the person, you know, that I'm giving them to. You know, I have a whole system down that the gym has adopted, and I've taught to other trainers that, you know, I have select set of exercises that I put everybody through. Everybody I meet, no matter what level they are in fitness, because I want to learn about them, how their body works, so I can give them the best program in the future. I want to build a base of physical preparation, you know, build a foundation that we can, you know, just put layers upon layers of brick on and just continue moving forward, you know. So that my whole thing as a trainer, you know, if you come see me, work at Move in the Woo, it's on Hampton, you know, we can get you in and get you started on that. Kickboxing as well. We got plenty of classes at River City Warriors. We have them in the morning and in the evening, you know, at 9 a.m. Monday through Saturday and 6 p.m. Monday through Friday. Then we can be started anywhere.
Website, social media?
I have a website. Social media is probably the best way to get home. I do have a website, www.tinkertraining.com. My email is matt@tinkertraining.com. And Matt Tinker on social media. I have a page, Tinker Training fitness page. You can look that up too. I have Matt the Madman Tinker on Facebook as well. And Instagram, I believe I am Matt the Madman Tinker as well. So you can reach me on any of those platforms, and I'm good to go. Messenger as well. Messenger is good too. Yeah.
Thanks for coming on.
Absolutely, man. Anytime.
Fucking appreciate it.
I'll come
This is
back and
awesome.
tell dick jokes if you want me to.
Yeah, maybe
or
next time we can just talk about dick jokes the whole time.
Right, yeah. That'll be great. Yeah.
Cool.
So,
Thanks, Matt.
awesome. Thank you very
Appreciate
much. Mhm.